My name is Hannah Cole, I'm 29. Once my big brother literally threw me out of my wheelchair at his own engagement party, in front of a champagne tower, dozens of guests, and a phone that was live streaming everything. One second, I was the brave little sister rolling in with a smile. The next I was flying face first into glass, because he decided I was faking it for attention. That night destroyed my family's perfect image and exposed a 2-year lie about my accident. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know in the comments where you are watching from. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe, because this story will make most family drama look cute. The elevator doors slid open on the top floor, and for a second I honestly thought I'd been dropped into someone's Instagram filter. The rooftop stretched out over downtown Seattle, all glass and light and careful perfection. White garlands crisscrossed above the veranda like glowing spiderwebs, tiny bulbs reflected in the floor-to-ceiling glass panels that framed the bay. Soft jazz drifted from a trio in the corner, the kind of slow, elegant music that makes people lower their voices and stand a little straighter. Everything was white and gold. Real white orchids tumbling out of matte gold vases. Even the bar back was lit with warm golden light, turning bottles and champagne flutes into jewelry. The invitation had been clear: total white plus gold, milky, cream, and beige only, no dark colors. So I tried. God, I really did. I'd spent the afternoon getting ready the way I used to before shows, back when getting ready meant pinning up my hair for a performance, not figuring out how to cover the hollows under my eyes from nerve pain and insomnia. I chose a simple cream dress that fell smoothly over my hips, soft fabric that didn't bunch when I sat. I curled my hair into loose waves, added a thin line of eyeliner, mascara, a nude lipstick that almost matched my skin. In the mirror, from the waist up, I almost looked like the old me. But my chair was still there in the reflection. Matte black carbon frame, narrow wheels, low back. Nothing soft or milky about it. I'd saved for that chair for months, every extra dollar from remote data entry jobs, every piece of clothing I listed online, every time I chose microwave mac and cheese over delivery. I knew its weight, the exact angle of the push rims, the way it responded when I shifted my balance. It wasn't pretty in the way this party was pretty, but it was the one thing in my life that felt like control. The dress code didn't mention wheelchairs. It never does. So I rolled out onto that veranda in my cream dress, my careful makeup, and my black chair, and pretended not to notice how people's gazes dipped as I passed face, dress, wheels, then back up with a quick polite smile. I could feel the invisible checklist: outfit on theme, hair on theme, but body not on theme. Somewhere among the soft jazz and the clink of glasses, my brother was playing host. Mark, the successful IT manager, the golden boy in a beige suit. I hadn't seen him in months. After the accident, there had been hospital visits and tight, guilty hugs, and then less of everything, less calls, less messages, less eye contact. He sent money once, for physical therapy, and our parents treated it like a holy offering. But an actual conversation? An apology? Those never came. Still, as I moved across the rooftop, my wheels humming softly against the smooth floor, I felt that stupid little bloom of hope in my chest. The hope that tonight, surrounded by his friends and this perfect white and gold world he'd built, my brother might finally look at me and see more than the mistake he made on a rainy road 2 years ago. Maybe he'd hug me like he used to after a show. Maybe he'd squeeze my shoulder and say, "I'm glad you're here, shorty." I rolled toward the crowd, toward the laughter, the music, and the clinking champagne, clutching that hope tighter than my handbag, not knowing this perfect evening would end with glass in my skin. I kept my gift on my lap for the first half hour like it was a small animal I was afraid someone would step on. The frame wasn't big, maybe the size of an iPad, wrapped in white paper and a thin gold ribbon I'd bought from the dollar store. My hands kept drifting to it, smoothing the crease in the paper, checking the knot on the bow, as if that could fix the knot sitting in my chest. Inside the frame, under glass, was a vintage drum key I'd hunted down online and a miniature silver microphone charm. I'd pinned them to a black velvet backing, printed a tiny photo of our old garage taped in the corner. Mark's drum set used to sit right there, paint peeling on the walls, my amp humming in the background. I'd stayed up late assembling it, my back screaming, my legs buzzing with that awful phantom fire while I glued and adjusted and tried not to cry when the super strong adhesive spilled on my fingers. I'd used money I'd put aside for meds to buy it. Not all of it, but enough that I'd be stretching pills and playing games with doses later. I told myself it was worth it. This wasn't just a thing. It was our childhood. Our band. Who we were before everything broke. When I finally spotted Mark and Lauren together near the bar, I rolled over, heart pounding harder than it used to before going on stage. Lauren was laughing at something one of their friends said, her milky satin dress catching the light, blonde hair in a low chignon that probably took a professional an hour to twist. "Hey," I said, stopping beside them. "Can I steal you for a second? I brought you guys something." Lauren turned first, her smile automatic and hostess ready, but softer than Mark's ever was. "Oh my gosh, Hannah, of course," she said, touching my arm lightly. "You didn't have to bring anything." Mark had a champagne flute in his hand, his cheeks already a little flushed. I could smell the alcohol on his breath when he leaned in, that sweet, sharp scent. Host mode was fully activated, big smile, loud laugh, eyes already scanning over my head toward the rest of the guests. I held the frame out with both hands. "It's just a little thing," I said. "For you both." Lauren took it, careful with the ribbon, and peeled back the paper. Her eyes widened a bit when she saw what was inside. "Oh," she breathed. "This is cute." "Is this our old band?" I said quickly. "The drum keys from the same model kit Mark had." "I thought maybe. I don't know. You could hang it in your place." A reminder. For a moment, Lauren's smile was genuinely warm. "That's really thoughtful," she said, turning it a little so the light caught the silver microphone. I glanced at Mark, waiting for his reaction like an idiot. Waiting for him to laugh and say, "Wow, Shorty, you remember that?" Waiting for even the smallest sign that the same memories were hitting him too. Instead, he took a big swallow of champagne and snorted without looking too closely at the frame. "You could have just transferred the money to our wedding account, Hannah," he said, voice flat and loud enough that the guy next to him heard. "We don't need junk from the dump." The words landed harder than any fall I've ever taken. Lauren froze for half a second, then pasted a careful smile back on her face, eyes darting between us. "Mark," she murmured under her breath, like a warning, but he was already turning away, raising his glass toward someone calling his name. The frame, still half-wrapped, ended up on the bar, next to a cluster of dirty glasses. No one bothered to move it to the gift table. No one even tried. Heat crept up my neck. I felt every pair of eyes that might have heard him. A couple nearby went quiet. The jazz kept playing, the fairy lights kept glowing, but it suddenly felt like the air had thinned. "Don't spoil people's celebrations," my mother's voice echoed in my head, the same line she'd used after the accident when I cried too loud, hurt too much, and needed too many things. So I swallowed hard, blinked fast until the tears retreated, and forced my face into something neutral. I mumbled something that might have been, "Excuse me," backed my chair away from the bar, and rolled toward the far edge of the rooftop, trying to make myself smaller, quieter, more invisible than I already felt. I parked myself near the railing, trying to slow my breathing and pretend my chest didn't feel like it was shrinking with every clink of glass behind me. I was staring at my own reflection in the glass when I heard his footsteps behind me. "There you are," Mark said, with that fake brightness hosts use when they're about to scold a server in front of guests. "I've been looking all over." I turned slightly, forcing a small smile. "Just getting out of the way," I said. Didn't want to block the bar. He didn't smile back. His eyes dropped, slow and deliberate, to my wheelchair. For a second, his face was perfectly blank. Then his jaw flexed. "Are you serious?" he muttered. "A black stroller at a white party? You knew the dress code." I blinked. "It's a wheelchair, Mark. This is the one I have." He stepped closer so his body blocked me from the rest of the guests, his hand landing on the back of my chair like a clamp. Up close, I could see how glossy his eyes were, that slightly off-focus look he got when the buzz was kicking in. "You couldn't get a cover? A rental?" "Something," he hissed, voice low but sharp. "This is an engagement party, not a hospital fundraiser." For a moment I just stared at him, because what do you even say to that? I can't just swap it like a purse, I said quietly. This chair was custom fitted. And I don't exactly have spare wheelchair and cream money lying around. He leaned down, so close that his breath brushed my ear. From a distance, it probably looked like he was hugging me, whispering something sweet to his little sister. I could feel eyes flick toward us, then politely away. You chose black on purpose, he murmured. Don't play dumb. You love standing out. Or, he gave a soft, humorless laugh, rolling out whatever. You knew it would ruin the photos. The words landed like slaps. I could feel my heart beating in my throat. I chose black because it was the used one I could afford, I said, my voice shaking despite everything in me screaming to keep it steady. It's not about your pictures. He straightened, smile snapping back on his face. Right, he said, louder now. Always some excuse. Then, without waiting for my response, he patted the top of my shoulder in a way that felt more like pressing me down and walked away, already lifting his hand to wave at someone across the terrace. I watched him move through the crowd, my cheeks burning. He stopped beside a group of his coworkers, laughed at something, then leaned in to say something else, head tilting just slightly in my direction. They glanced over at me almost in unison. A second group. Same thing. Mark talking, his mouth close to someone's ear, their eyes cutting toward me, then back to him with that little half-smile people wear when they're being told something they'll pretend not to believe, but absolutely will repeat later. I couldn't hear the words then, but I knew the pattern. I knew my brother's body language as well as I used to know his drum fills. I wished I could disappear. Or at least shrink into my chair, fold myself up and slip into some side room where the music sounded muffled and nobody looked at me like I was an uninvited guest at my own life. Instead, I took a sip of my champagne, now warm and flat, and tried not to flinch every time I caught someone looking away too quickly. Later, I found out exactly what he'd been saying. Lauren's cousin messaged me the next day, and then one of Mark's coworkers, quietly, like they were confessing to sneaking out after curfew. Both of them used almost the same phrase, like they were quoting a script. He said the doctors gave you permission to walk a long time ago, one wrote. That you're just not ready to let go of the wheelchair yet. Another, he said you, exaggerate the injury. That you can walk short distances, but prefer the sympathy factor. I don't know, it sounded harsh. Sympathy factor. Like my spine was a PR move. It wasn't new, not really. For 2 years, I'd listened to my parents gently rewrite the story of the accident until even I started doubting my own memory. In their version, I'd insisted on the late-night drive in the rain. I'd begged Mark to take that winding back road because it would be fun. I distracted him and jerked the wheel. They never said your brother was texting his ex at 60 miles an hour. They never said he walked away with a few bruises and you left half your body behind in that ditch. Instead, it became this vague, shared family mistake. Bad road. Bad luck. Bad timing. And, slowly, somehow, bad judgment on my part. Don't keep bringing it up, Mom would say when I mentioned the messages I'd seen open on his phone right before the crash. What good does it do now? He feels awful. Why focus on blame? Dad would add. We all made choices that night. All I'd done was get in the car. And now, on the rooftop, under those perfect fairy lights, I could feel all those quiet revisions converging into one neat, acceptable story Mark was feeding his guests. They called everyone over for photos just when I'd finally managed to blend into the background. Family. We need the happy couple and the immediate family over here, the photographer shouted, clapping his hands like we were a kindergarten class. People laughed and started drifting toward the far end of the rooftop, where the photo zone was set up. I rolled that way with everyone else, my wheels humming softly over the smooth floor. The photo backdrop was impossible to miss, a giant neon sign that read "Love is in the air" in looping pink letters, hanging over a white platform framed with pampas grass and more orchids. To the right, there was a tower of champagne coupes stacked in a perfect pyramid, golden bubbles catching the light. On the left, some kind of clear glass installation, a big transparent cube on a low metal base, with delicate glass balls hanging inside on thin wires, lit from below. It looked expensive and fragile, which is probably why everyone kept a careful distance. The photographer, a guy in his 30s with a beard and a camera that cost more than my first car, started arranging people by height. Tallest in the back, let's get the parents in the middle, bridesmaids here, groomsmen there. He moved them around with practiced hands. Then his gaze landed on me. "Oh," he said, frowning slightly, like I was a puzzle piece that didn't fit. "Okay, let's see." He looked over his shoulder. "Do we have that stool?" One of the catering staff rushed forward with a tall white bar stool. No armrests. No back support. Just a sleek seat on long, thin legs. "We'll put you right here on this," the photographer said, cheerful and oblivious. "We'll tuck the chair out of frame so the shot looks clean." "Okay." Every muscle in my upper body tensed. Before I could answer, Mark appeared at my side, champagne still in hand, jaw tight. "Go ahead," he said lightly, nodding at the stool. "Move over." No wheelchairs in my perfect photo. It was said like a joke, but there was steel underneath. I took a breath. "Mark, I can't sit on that," I said, keeping my voice as calm as I could. "My injury is T9. I don't have abdominal muscles. I'll just slide right off." He leaned down toward me, still smiling for the photographer, for the guests lining up around us. If anyone was watching, it probably looked like a sweet brother-sister moment. His voice, though, was a low hiss. "Everyone knows you love a show," he whispered. "It's time to stop." My heart hammered against my ribs. I glanced at my parents. Mom was fussing with her necklace. Dad was smoothing his shirt, both studiously not looking at me. "Mark," I tried again, more urgently now. "I'm serious. This isn't drama. I can't balance on that. I'll fall." He straightened, and suddenly his voice was no longer a whisper. "Stop pretending to get attention," he said, loud enough that the people in the front row flinched. The sound cut through the jazz, through the murmur of conversations. For a beat, everything went a little quieter. Faces turned toward us, some openly, some sideways, pretending not to stare. Heat burned up my neck into my ears. I opened my mouth to protest, to say you know exactly what's wrong with my spine, but I didn't even get the chance. Mark set his champagne glass down on a nearby table with a little clink. "Come on, let's just do this," he said, voice back to fake bright, as if he were the reasonable one and I was being childish. Then his hands were under my arms. It happened so fast my brain couldn't keep up. 1 second I was sitting in my chair, hands on the push rims, trying to hold my ground. The next, his fingers dug into my upper arms, and he was hauling me up in this rough, awkward lift that ignored everything the physical therapists had drilled into us about transfers and support. "Mark, wait," I gasped, my legs dangling uselessly, my body pitching forward. At the same time, I felt his foot slam against something. The pedal of my wheelchair. He kicked it backward, hard. The chair rolled away from us, the ultralight frame responding instantly. My center of gravity vanished. Without my chair behind me and without any core muscles to stabilize myself, I was suddenly just hanging in the air, clinging to his grip. Then he let go. I tipped forward, the world tilting with me. The neon sign blurred, the white platform rushed up, someone screamed. My hands flew out on instinct, trying to catch myself, but there was nothing solid, just the slick edge of the champagne tower. My fingers hit the lowest row of glasses. The whole structure shivered. For one suspended heartbeat, everything held. The glasses wobbled, liquids sloshed, tiny golden waves catching the light. I thought, ridiculously, maybe it won't fall. But then, the first glass slipped. The sound was sharp, like a single note shattering, and then the rest followed. The tower collapsed in a cascading crash, glass against glass, champagne exploding in cold sprays across my face and hair. I kept falling, my shoulder slamming into the table as it tipped, and then I was tumbling sideways, right into the clear glass installation beside it. The cube's edge caught me across the upper back, a hard metal line that knocked the breath from my lungs. The delicate glass balls inside swung wildly, then smashed against one another, tiny explosions of sound and light. Shards rained down over me, cutting into my hands as I instinctively tried to shield my face. I ended up on the floor, half on the white platform and half off, my dress soaked in sticky champagne, the sharp sting of glass slicing into my palms, my cheek, my forearms. My back screamed, a hot, white pain radiating out from where I'd hit the metal edge. For a second, I couldn't even inhale. My body just refused. The whole rooftop went dead silent. I could feel dozens of eyes on me. Someone's phone was still up, pointed in my direction. I heard a muffled curse, a stifled sob from somewhere behind the bridal party. My first thought, stupidly, was don't move. Don't move. Please let my spine be okay. I stared up at the neon letters, love is in the air, flickering slightly overhead like the sign itself was mocking me. I waited for Mark to shout my name, to drop to his knees, to say, oh my God, Hannah, are you okay? Instead, his voice cut through the silence, sharp and furious, from somewhere above my head. Damn it, he snapped. Now the stage is covered in blood. Who's going to pay for the cleanup and new decor? Not my sister's bleeding. Not call an ambulance. Just money. Just the mess. Just his ruined perfect picture. For a second after his shout, everything froze like a paused video. Then the sound came roaring back all at once, gasps, someone screaming my name, the jazz stuttering to a stop mid-song. Champagne dripped from the edge of the toppled table in slow, sticky threads. I tried to move my head and a bolt of pain shot down my spine so sharp it made my vision blur. Don't move, I whispered to myself, though my voice barely came out. My hands were shaking, I could taste metal in my mouth, and I didn't know if it was from a cut or just fear. And then I saw her. A woman in a dark charcoal suit, not the cream and gold uniform everyone else seemed to be wearing, broke through the circle of frozen guests. She'd kicked off a pair of heels somewhere between the tables. She was barefoot, moving fast, a conference badge still tucked into her pocket, her dark hair pulled back in a low bun that had started to come loose. Move, she said sharply, slicing through the murmurs. Move, move, move. People parted without even thinking, the way they do when someone sounds like they know exactly what they're doing. In the next second, she was kneeling beside me, one knee in spilled champagne, her expression focused and fierce. Her hands came to either side of my head, fingers firm but careful, holding me steady against the slick floor. Don't touch her, she shouted over her shoulder. Possible spinal injury. Call 911 and report it as an assault, not an accident. Her voice was so clear it felt like it cut the night in half. A couple of guests flinched at the word assault. Someone dropped a glass. Somewhere nearby, I heard Lauren suck in a shaky breath. The woman leaned over me, blocking out the neon sign, her face coming into focus. Strong features, tired eyes, a small line between her brows that softened when she looked down at me. Hannah, she said, and my brain snagged on the fact that she knew my name. Can you hear me? Yeah, I managed, my throat tight. I can hear you. Good. Keep your head still, okay? You took a nasty fall. Can you feel my hands on your shoulders? Any new numbness? Any burning? Everything already burned, but it wasn't the same terrifying absence I remembered from the night of the car crash. I forced my thoughts through the fog. I can feel your hands, I breathed. My legs are the same. Not worse. Just my back. And my hands. Face, maybe. Okay, she said, and I could hear the calm click into place in her voice, like she was sliding into a familiar role. We're going to keep you exactly where you are until EMS arrives. No one is going to drag you or sit you up. Do you understand? I nodded as much as I could under her grip, which was barely at all. Someone nearby hesitated. Shouldn't we put her in a chair or something? Get her off the floor. The woman's head snapped up. No, she said, sharp enough to cut. Absolutely not. You move her, you risk paralyzing her further. I said don't touch her. Then louder, for everyone. I'm Dr. Donna Reyes, head of neurosurgery at Portland General. 2 years ago, I put the plates and screws in this woman's spine myself. I know exactly what she can and cannot do. And she absolutely cannot walk. The rooftop seemed to inhale as one. Her words sliced through the nice, vague narrative my family had been spinning for 2 years. Head of neurosurgery. Plates and screws. There it was, in plain, clinical language, no room for interpretation or sympathy factor theories. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw my mother's face go paper white. My father's jaw clenched so tight I thought his teeth might crack. And Mark, I couldn't see Mark yet. Just the edge of his beige pant leg, a step back from the circle forming around me. He didn't rush in. He didn't crouch down. He just stood there. "Someone call 911, Dr. Reyes repeated, turning her head just enough to project without loosening her hands on my skull. "Tell them there's been an assault on a disabled woman with a prior spinal injury. We need a backboard and a collar now." "I'm on it," a guy's voice said, shaky. One of the groomsmen, I thought. He stepped aside, phone pressed to his ear, already starting to ramble out details. Assault. Disabled woman. Prior spinal injury. The words made my heart pound so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. Nobody had ever said it like that out loud. Not even me. Not where other people could hear. Someone knelt near my legs, far enough not to jostle me. "Lauren's aunt," they whispered. "She just flew in, straight from some conference. We didn't even know she was coming this early." Lauren's aunt. Of course. I tried to swallow. My throat was dry. "You did my surgery?" I asked, looking up at Dr. Reyes again. She glanced down at me, her gaze softening for a fraction of a second. "Yeah," she said quietly. "You had that rollover on I-5, remember? Texting driver, wet road. You were very lucky considering. We stabilized you, but walking was never in the cards without a miracle." She said it not to hurt me, but like she was stating a simple fact. Behind her, someone choked out. "He said she was exaggerating." He said. Dr. Reyes didn't look away from me. "Well, he lied," she said, but her voice carried just enough that the people standing in the first row could hear it too. And I will say that under oath if I have to. My eyes stung. Not just from the glass, but from something hot and wild pushing up from somewhere deep. For the first time since the accident, an adult, someone in authority, someone with letters after their name, was saying, clearly, that I wasn't crazy. That I hadn't made this up. "Wait, this is all a misunderstanding," my mother's voice cut in weakly from the side. She sounded like she did when a neighbor caught our dog digging up their flower bed, embarrassed, defensive, already reaching for excuses. She just slipped. Mark was trying to help her onto the stool. "Is that what we're calling it?" Dr. Reyes asked, not even glancing at her. Her hands stayed exactly where they were, anchoring me to the floor. Because from where I was standing, it looked a lot like he yanked her out of her chair after accusing her of faking. "I didn't," Mark started, finally. I could hear the panic under the anger in his voice now. "You literally shouted, 'Stop pretending to get attention' right before you threw her," someone else said. A woman's voice this time, high and shaky. "It's on video." Chloe was live streaming. The air shifted again. I could see it now, just past Dr. Reyes's shoulder. One of Lauren's friends, Chloe, standing there with her phone still in her hand, screen glowing. Her lipstick was smeared and her eyes were huge, fixed on me like she couldn't quite believe what she'd accidentally captured. I was just streaming the party on TikTok," she stammered. "You know, for fun." I had the phone up when he did it. The chat went crazy. People were commenting before I even understood what happened. Another girl leaned over to look at her phone, her hand flying to her mouth. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Look at this. There are like 10,000 people watching the replay already." I felt dizzy in a completely new way. Strangers. People who didn't know me, didn't know Mark, didn't owe my family anything. Watching from their couches or buses or beds somewhere out there in the dark. Watching him yank me out of my chair. Watching me fall. "What are they saying?" someone asked, morbid curiosity slipping out before they could stop it. The girl scrolled, reading aloud without thinking. "Is this staged? Please tell me this is staged. Call the cops. OMG, this guy's going to jail." Each line hit like a separate jolt. It was surreal, lying on the ground with glass in my skin and champagne soaking into my dress, listening to strangers narrate my trauma in real time from a screen inches away. Chloe's hands were trembling so hard she almost dropped the phone. "I didn't mean," she started, voice breaking. "I just thought it was a pretty party." "It's not your fault," I croaked, surprising myself. You didn't push me. Dr. Reyes glanced at the phone, then at Mark, then back down at me. This might actually be the best thing that could have happened, she murmured, more to herself than to me. Documentation. Independent witnesses. Real-time reactions. I let my eyes drift closed for a moment, not moving my head, just feeling the coolness of the floor under my back and the warmth of her steady hands. I don't know how much time passed between Dr. Reyes barking out "Call 911" and the first wail of sirens, but it felt like both forever and no time at all. My back throbbed in angry waves. Somewhere nearby, Chloe was still clutching her phone, the TikTok live stream running on a loop. People kept drifting in and out of frame, some crying, some whispering, some just staring like they'd wandered into the wrong movie. Then, faint at first and then growing louder, I heard it. Sirens. Not just one, but overlapping tones, rising up from the streets below. "They're here," someone said in a shaky voice. The stairwell door flew open. First came the EMTs in Navy uniforms, moving with the same purposeful urgency as Dr. Reyes. Right behind them were two police officers, their badges catching the light, hands resting near their belts in that practiced, calm way. For a surreal second, I thought, all this because I tried to go to my brother's party. "Over here," Dr. Reyes called out. Female, 29, known T9 spinal cord injury, fall with impact to back and head, multiple lacerations, possible concussion. Do not move her without a board and collar. The EMTs knelt beside us, quickly slipping into a practiced rhythm with her, checking my vitals, securing a cervical collar around my neck, sliding a backboard beneath me with careful, coordinated movements. Every shift sent a bolt of pain through me, but they kept talking, grounding me with questions. Name, date, where it hurt, if I could feel their touch here, and here. While they worked, the officers stayed a few feet back, surveying the scene. One of them, a woman with her hair pulled tight into a bun, took in the shattered glass, the toppled champagne tower, my overturned chair, the cluster of pale, guilty faces. "Who called this in?" she asked, voice steady. A guy in a dress shirt raised his hand awkwardly. "I did," he said. "Well, kind of. My girlfriend's friend was live streaming the party, and somebody watching it hit the report violence button. The platform flagged it and I don't know, somehow it got to you." The officer's partner, a tall man with a weathered face, nodded. "We got multiple calls about an assault on a woman in a wheelchair at this address," he said. "Dispatch sent us and EMS at the same time." The woman officer turned slightly. "Who's the victim's guardian or family?" she asked. "My name is Dr. Donna Reyes," Lauren's aunt answered before my parents could open their mouths. "I'm her surgeon and a witness. This is Hannah Cole. She's an adult, competent, and she was assaulted by her brother." A ripple went through the crowd. My mother made a strangled sound. "Donna, please," she whispered. "This is family. What we don't need is anyone touching the scene until statements are taken," Dr. Reyes cut in sharply. "And we definitely don't need people lying to officers of the law." The male officer looked over at my overturned wheelchair, then at the tall white stool still standing innocently by the backdrop. "Which one is the brother?" he asked. A few people shifted out of the way, and there he was, Mark. Beige suit now speckled with champagne, jaw clenched, hands balled into fists at his sides. He looked smaller than I'd ever seen him, like the air had gone out of him, and all that was left was anger and fear. "I didn't assault anyone," he said tightly. She slipped. I tried to help her. Before the officers could respond, a voice spoke up from the edge of the group. "I saw the whole thing," a man said. "And that's not what happened." It was Mr. Harrison, his business partner. I'd met him once before at a barbecue, mid-50s, expensive watch, the kind of calm, measured presence that made people lean in when he spoke. But tonight, he looked grim. The officers turned to him. "You are?" the woman asked, pulling a small notebook from her pocket. "Daniel Harrison," he said. "I'm Mark's partner at the firm." I was standing over there, near the bar, when he walked up to his sister. He gestured, outlining the angle. He told her there were no wheelchairs in his perfect photo. Mr. Harrison continued, voice steady. "She said she couldn't sit on that stool because of her injury." He leaned in, said something about her loving a show, then yelled, "Stop pretending to get attention." After that, he grabbed her under the arms and yanked her out of the wheelchair. I watched him kick the chair away with his foot. She had no support. She fell. None of that looked accidental. The officers exchanged a look. The woman jotted notes. The man's gaze sharpened. "Is anyone else willing to confirm that?" he asked. There was a murmur. A bridesmaid raised a trembling hand. One of the groomsmen nodded. Even Chloe, still clutching her phone, stepped forward. "I have it on video," she said. "From the live stream. You can see everything he just described. You can hear what Mark says." That got their full attention. "Ma'am, can I see your phone?" the male officer asked gently. "We'll need to preserve that." She handed it over with shaking fingers. He held it carefully, like it might break, then hit replay. I couldn't see the screen from where I lay, but I heard it, the murmur of the party, the clinking of glasses, the photographer's instructions, and then Mark's voice, crystal clear. "Go ahead, move over. No wheelchairs in my perfect photo." Silence. Then my voice, small but audible. "Mark, with my level of injury, I don't have abdominal muscles. I'll just slide off." Another beat. His whisper wasn't picked up, but his next sentence was, "Stop pretending to get attention." The sound of chairs scraping, a muffled gasp, the scuffle of shoes, then the crash. Glass. Shouts. Someone screaming my name. The camera jerking, catching the blur of my body going down, then static. The officer paused the video and exhaled slowly through his nose. "Well," he said, "that's pretty clear." He stepped aside and showed it briefly to his partner. Her jaw tightened. "Okay," she said. Then, to the group at large, "Based on witness statements and video evidence, we're treating this as aggravated assault on a disabled person." My stomach flipped. Hearing it framed like that, officially, was both terrifying and weirdly vindicating. Mark's face went slack. "Are you kidding me?" he snapped. "This is insane. I'm her brother. I was helping her. She's been milking this injury for years and—" "Stop talking, Mark," Mr. Harrison said quietly, but firmly. "Right now." The male officer approached him. "Mark Cole?" he asked, though it didn't sound like much of a question. "Yes," Mark muttered. "Turn around, please." "What?" "No, Turn around," the officer repeated, more firmly. "Hands behind your back." There was a rustle as the guests shifted, the circle around us widening. The EMTs were strapping me fully to the backboard now, getting ready to lift. I could only see Mark from the corner of my eye, but I heard the click of the handcuffs, sharp and final. "You are under arrest for aggravated assault on a disabled person," the officer recited. "You have the right to remain silent." The words rolled on, familiar from TV and utterly surreal in real life. As he spoke, someone's phone dinged loudly in the awkward quiet. Then another. And another. A weird, overlapping chorus of notifications. People started glancing down at their screens. I saw the glow of headlines reflected on faces. Chloe, no longer holding her phone, asked in a dazed voice, Is it already online?" One of the bridesmaids swore under her breath. "It's everywhere," she whispered. "Oh my God. Look." Someone at the edge muttered a hashtag. Someone else mentioned a local news station's account. I caught fragments. Engagement party horror. Accessibility app manager caught on video. That last one made my brain snap to attention. Accessibility app? I croaked. Mr. Harrison rubbed a hand over his face. "Our company," he said, sounding suddenly older. "We've been developing an app to help businesses improve disability access." He's been the public face of that project. PR-friendly story. Tech guy with a disabled sister. You can imagine how that looked in the pitch deck. My stomach churned. The female officer's radio crackled. She turned away slightly, listening, then responded in clipped phrases. When she came back, her expression was even grimmer. "Looks like your company already saw the video," she said to Mark. "Someone forwarded it to them. They've notified our department they're cooperating fully with the investigation." Almost on cue, Mark's own phone buzzed in his pocket. The male officer reached in carefully, pulled it out, and glanced at the screen. "There's an email here from your HR department," he said, brows lifting slightly. Subject line, notice of immediate suspension pending investigation. He held it up so Mark could see the preview. Even from where I lay, I could make out the first line. Effective immediately, you are suspended from all duties. Mark's shoulders slumped. Some of the fight went out of his voice. You can't be serious, he muttered. Over one mistake? At a private event. It stopped being private when it went viral, Mr. Harrison said quietly. There was no sympathy in his tone, just weary resignation. We build tools for people like your sister. Do you have any idea what this looks like? Lauren stood a few feet away, hands clasped in front of her, face pale and drawn. She hadn't said a word since the fall. And now, slowly, she stepped forward. Officer, she said, voice steady but soft. Can I talk to him for just a second? Before you take him. The female officer hesitated, then nodded. Keep it brief, she said. And don't interfere. Lauren approached Mark. The noise around them faded into a kind of muffled hum for me. All I could see was the way her fingers trembled as she reached for his hand, the one not pinned by the cuff. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Whatever they were saying was too low for me to hear. Then, in one slow, deliberate motion, Lauren slipped the engagement ring off her finger. She took his hand, turned it palm up, and set the ring in the center. His eyes went wide. Lauren, don't. She closed his fingers around it. No speech, no dramatic declaration. Just a small, tight nod and a whisper I barely caught. I can't marry someone who does this. Then she stepped back, arms wrapping around herself as if she was suddenly cold. The officers began to guide him toward the stairwell, one on each side. Mark twisted his head, looking back over his shoulder. For a second, his gaze found mine where I lay, strapped to the board, collar around my neck, face streaked with blood and champagne. There was something like shock there. Maybe shame. Maybe just disbelief that his perfect life had cracked open in one night. He opened his mouth like he wanted to say my name. But nothing came out. Then they led him away, the door closing behind them with a heavy click, and the rooftop erupted in a flurry of whispers, notifications, and the distant echo of sirens carrying my brother, the golden boy, the accessibility app manager. I don't remember much of the ambulance ride, just flashes. The ceiling lights strobing above me. The straps across my chest. The EMT's calm voice asking the same questions over and over, my name, the date, if I knew where I was. I kept drifting in and out, like my brain was trying to shut off and my body refused to let it. By the time they wheeled me into the ER, the concussion headache had bloomed into something huge and mean, pulsing behind my eyes. People in scrubs moved around me in a blur of blue and green. CT first. Then MRI. Cold table, loud machine, the claustrophobic thumping noise that felt like someone knocking on my skull from the inside. I lay there strapped down, trying not to think about the last time I'd been in a scanner like this, 2 years ago, when the doctors were using words like incomplete and paralysis and we're not sure yet. When they finally rolled me back into a room, Dr. Reyes was waiting. She'd swapped her champagne-soaked suit jacket for a disposable gown over her clothes, her conference badge now clipped to a pocket along with a hospital ID they'd hurriedly printed for her. She closed the curtain partway, giving us a little bubble of privacy, then leaned on the side rail of the bed. Good news first, she said. There's no new serious damage to your spine. The hardware is intact, alignment looks stable. You do have a concussion, a lot of soft tissue trauma, and enough bruises to make you look like modern art tomorrow. But no catastrophic new injury. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. My eyes stung. So I'm still me? I asked. No worse than before? You're still you, she said gently. Your head's taken a hit, and we'll need to watch you, but your baseline from the accident is unchanged. That alone is a miracle, considering what your brother did. I swallowed hard. Hearing her say, what your brother did, out loud made my stomach twist. A soft knock on the door frame interrupted us. Lauren stood there, still in her engagement dress, mascara smudged, hair coming loose. She looked younger without the perfect makeup, almost like a high school senior who'd been crying in the bathroom between prom photos. Can I come in? She asked. I hesitated for a fraction of a second, then nodded. Yeah. She slipped into the room, hovering near the foot of the bed. Her eyes ran over the bandages on my hands, the butterfly strips on my cheek, the collar. She winced. I am so sorry, she said quietly. I don't even know where to start. You didn't push me, I replied. That's a pretty good start. She let out a shaky, almost laugh, then fell silent again. Dr. Reyes cleared her throat. Since you're both here, she said, there's something I want to show you. She pulled a thin folder and a tablet out of her bag and opened the folder on the rolling tray table. The pages were copies of old forms, some still faintly crinkled from being faxed. The tablet showed scanned images with hospital logos and dates at the top. These are your records from 2 years ago, she said to me. From your initial admission after the car crash. My chest tightened. You kept them. I don't throw anything away, she said. And when I heard your brother telling people you were exaggerating and that you had permission to walk, I got angry enough to dig them up. She flipped to one page and turned it so we could see. This is the toxicology screen from the night of the accident, she said, tapping the line with her pen. See here? Blood alcohol level, 0. No drugs. Nothing. You were stone cold sober. I stared at the neat little 0, my throat closing. For 2 years, I'd listened to hints and sighs and sideways comments about you two drinking that night and how fast were you going, like we were equally at fault. Like maybe I contributed somehow. Your parents told my aunt you'd both been drinking, Lauren whispered, eyes wide. They said you were reckless together, that it wasn't really Mark's fault because you insisted on going out. Yeah, I said hoarsely. They like that version. Dr. Reyes slid another page forward. And this, she said, is the police report. It notes the road conditions, the time, the weather. And right here, she tapped again, it states that the driver, Mark Cole, admitted to looking down at his phone to read a text from his ex-girlfriend right before the vehicle left the roadway. Silence pressed in around us. He told them that? I managed. That night, yes, she said. People tend to be more honest when they're in shock and there's glass in their hair. The officer documented it. Lauren's hand flew to her mouth. He always said you grabbed the wheel, she whispered. That's what your mom told everyone. That you freaked out about something on his phone and made him swerve. I laughed, but it came out jagged. I couldn't even reach the wheel from where I was sitting, I said. My seatbelt locked. Dr. Reyes's eyes were sympathetic but steady. This is why I'm showing you both this now, she said. Because your family has built an entire narrative on top of a lie, and tonight that lie nearly got you killed a second time. I stared at the pages until the numbers blurred. Can I get copies? I asked. You'll get originals once we start the formal process, she said. For now, I wanted you to see that you're not crazy. You remember exactly what happened. Lauren sank into the plastic visitor chair like her knees had given out. I can't believe he looked me in the eye and told me you were milking it, she said, more to herself than to me. He used you like a prop in all those meetings. My sister's in a wheelchair, I cared deeply about accessibility, it made investors melt. And all this time. She didn't finish the sentence. A knock rattled the door before anyone could say more. Then it flew open without waiting for an answer. My parents swept in like a storm front. Mom's hair was frizzed at the edges now, her lipstick faded, but she'd clearly taken time to fix her mascara. Dad's tie was gone, top button undone. They looked tired, but not like people whose daughter had almost broken her back again. More like people whose flight had been delayed. Oh, honey, Mom said, but there was no question about how I felt. No, are you okay? She gave me a quick once-over, then glanced at Dr. Reyes and Lauren, lips tightening. We need a minute alone with our daughter. No, you really don't, Dr. Reyes said calmly, not moving from her spot by the bed. Anything you have to say to her, you can say in front of all of us. Mom's nostrils flared. Donna, this is a family matter. It stopped being just a family matter when your son committed a felony on camera, Dr. Reyes replied. Say what you came to say. For a second, I thought Mom might actually argue. Then she seemed to remember where she was and switched to her reasonable voice, the one she used on school principals. Hannah, she began, folding her hands on the bedrail, you need to think very carefully about what you're going to tell the police and the prosecutors. There it was. No preamble. No concern about the concussion. Just straight to business. Dad nodded, jaw tight. Things got out of hand tonight, he said. Your brother was under a lot of stress. Big event. A little too much to drink, tensions running high. You know how he is. Yes, I said. I do. Mom pressed on. You slipped, she said firmly. You were trying to move to the stool, you lost your balance, and Mark tried to grab you. He never meant to hurt you. That's what happened. My head throbbed. But that's not what happened, I said slower. He dragged me out of my chair and kicked it away. Dad sighed like I was being difficult. Sweetheart, if you say that, they're going to throw the book at him. His career, his future, it'll all be over. Do you really want that on your conscience? I stared at them stunned. You saw the video? I asked. Mom's mouth tightened. We saw enough, she said. Your generation films everything. Angles can be misleading. People on the internet love to overreact. Lauren shifted in her chair. He literally says, stop pretending to get attention right before he pulls her out of the chair, she said quietly. There's not much Angle can do about that. Mom ignored her. She leaned closer to me, her perfume sharp and familiar. Do the right thing, Hannah, she said in a low, urgent tone. Tell them you slipped. Tell them Mark wanted to help. Don't ruin your brother's life over one misunderstanding. Something inside me snapped at that. I thought of the pills I'd skipped to afford that stupid framed gift. The nights I'd woken up screaming from nerve pain. The way Mark had looked at me like I was trash at the bar. I didn't ruin his life, I said. He did. Dad's expression hardened. You're angry. I get that, he said. But you're not thinking long-term. Court, lawyers, media. It'll be a circus. You don't want that, right? You mean you don't, I shot back. He opened his mouth, but Dr. Reyes cut in, voice crisp. You two should stop talking now, she said. You're very close to saying things that will look awful in a transcript. Mom turned on her. You're not even family, she snapped. You have no right to interfere. I'm her surgeon, a mandatory reporter, and a witness, Dr. Reyes replied. And I also know enough law to recognize attempted witness tampering when I hear it. The word hung in the air like a dropped plate. Excuse me, Dad said, color rising in his face. You are pressuring your injured daughter in a hospital bed to change her account of a violent incident to protect your son, she said calmly. You are asking her to lie to law enforcement. That is textbook tampering with a witness. If you continue, I will document it, and I will report it. They both went very still. At that moment, there was another knock, this one polite, followed by the door opening a few inches. A man in a gray suit peered in, holding a slim briefcase. He had that slick, polished look. Am I interrupting? He asked smoothly. I'm looking for the Cole family. I'm Alan Price, an attorney. A mutual friend suggested I stop by to help smooth things over. Mom visibly relaxed. Alan, yes, she said quickly. Come in. We were just trying to convince your daughter to recant, Dr. Reyes said. In front of multiple witnesses, including me. His eyes flicked to her badge, then to my chart, then back. He adjusted his tie. Let's all take a breath, he said, lawyer pleasant. Emotions are high. We don't want anyone saying something they'll regret. Perhaps we can discuss a way to frame this that doesn't destroy Mark's life and still acknowledges Hannah's experience. My skin crawled at the word frame. Another figure stepped into view behind him, Mr. Harrison. He hovered in the doorway, clearly uncomfortable. Alan, he said quietly, this may be more serious than a bit of framing. Dr. Reyes straightened. Mr. Harrison, she said, I need to remind you that you have already given a statement to the police. He nodded. I know, he said. I stand by it. Good, she replied. Because if anyone, including this gentleman, she nodded at the lawyer, encourages you to change or soften your account to make Mark look better, that's tampering too. And given that there's a viral video, altering the story will make everyone involved look guilty. Mr. Price's smile thinned. I'm simply here to advise the family, he said. No one is suggesting anyone lie. You just said frame it differently, I pointed out. Which is a pretty way of saying don't tell the whole truth. He held up a hand, as if calming a restless jury. What I'm saying is that words matter, he replied. If this goes to trial, language like assault and through her will inflame a jury. If we emphasize that you were moving to sit on the stool and your brother misjudged, it paints a less malicious picture. My head pounded. He kicked my chair away, I said. That feels pretty malicious. Dr. Reyes glanced at me, then at Lauren, then back to the lawyer. I anticipated this, she said. So I called someone too. She stepped aside just as another woman entered, mid-40s, sharp suit, no-nonsense haircut, eyes like she'd seen every trick in the book twice. This is Attorney Maya Chin, Dr. Reyes said. She specializes in medical and disability rights cases. She's here to represent Hannah. Mr. Price's expression flickered, just for a second. Already lawyering up? He said lightly. Yes, I said. Already. Maya shook my hand gently, then turned to my parents, to Alan, to Mr. Harrison. I've spoken briefly with Dr. Reyes and read the preliminary report, she said. Given the combination of prior spinal injury, the recorded video, and tonight's attempted pressure on my client to change her story, I'd strongly advise everyone here to tread very carefully. Mom bristled. We're just trying to keep our family from being torn apart, she said. Maya didn't flinch. Your son's actions did that, she said. Not your daughter's honesty. She looked at Mr. Harrison. As for you, sir, you've done the right thing so far. You observed, you told the truth. That's all anyone can ask. If anyone asks you to soften or rephrase your account, remember that the video exists. Lying wouldn't just be immoral, it would be stupid. Mr. Harrison nodded slowly. I understand, he said. He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw something like real remorse in his eyes, not for himself, but for having stood next to my brother for so long without seeing what he was capable of. I'm not changing a word, he added. Mr. Price pressed his lips together, clearly realizing this was no longer a friendly little side conversation he could steer. Very well, he said. I'll coordinate with Mark's criminal attorney then. He made a small, stiff bow toward my parents and retreated, Mr. Harrison following. The room felt bigger once they were gone, but also somehow heavier. My parents stood there, both looking shaken. Mom's eyes filled with tears, finally. I hope you're happy, she whispered. You've turned your brother into a criminal. I stared at her, exhausted beyond words. No, I said quietly. He did that. You just finally don't get to hide it. Dr. Reyes moved closer to my bed, her presence solid and grounding. Maya stood at my other side, notebook already open, pen poised. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like the child in the room. I had records, professionals, and the truth on my side. And my parents, who'd always assumed they could smooth anything over with charm and pressure, were starting to realize that this time, the consequences weren't just coming for Mark. They might be coming for them, too. The legal process moved slower than my bruises healed, but it felt just as painful. By the time I could sit up for more than an hour without the room spinning, the concussion haze had faded enough for me to understand what Maya and the prosecutor were really saying. We were in a small conference room at the courthouse, sitting at a table that had seen too many tense conversations. I sat at the end in my chair, Maya beside me, Dr. Reyes on my other side. Across from us was the assistant district attorney. My parents sat further down, stiff and pale. Mark wasn't there. He was in holding, appearing by video later. The ADA folded her hands. Let me be very clear, she said. If we take this to trial and we win, and with the video, Dr. Reyes's testimony, and the prior accident records, that's very likely your brother could be looking at up to 12 years. Aggravated assault on a disabled person, public setting, clear disregard for her safety, repeated danger to her health. 12 years. The number hung in the air like another neon sign. Mom flinched like she'd been slapped. Dad stared at the table. There is another option, the ADA continued. If he's willing to enter a full admission of guilt, no hedging, no, she slipped, agree to a public apology and compensate you for past and future damages, we're willing to discuss a plea. That would likely look like 3 years, with the possibility of early release for good behavior. But it only happens if you're satisfied with the deal, Hannah. Everyone looked at me then, like I was the judge. My throat felt dry. I glanced at Maya. She gave me a small nod, then cleared her throat. We've calculated damages, she said calmly. Past and present medical treatment, rehab costs, assistive equipment, therapy, lost income, plus pain and suffering. Given the length of time the family has pushed a false narrative and the active smear campaign about her faking, we're adding punitive damages as well. She slid a printed sheet across the table. The number at the bottom made my parents physically jerk. $500,000, Maya said. That's our figure. If paid in full, up front, into an account in Hannah's name before sentencing, she'll agree to the plea bargain. Mom actually laughed. A short, disbelieving sound. You can't be serious, she said. $500,000? We don't have that kind of money. Mark doesn't, I said quietly. But you do. Dad's head snapped up. We have our retirement, the lake house. Exactly, I said. You have assets. You've always had assets for Mark. Lawyers, tuition, bail money that one time he got in that bar fight in college and you pretended never happened. Meanwhile, I've been rationing medication and skipping PT because it was too expensive. My voice shook, but I didn't stop. You've been saving Mark at my expense your whole life, I said. Now, for the first time, you're paying the real price. Mom's eyes filled with tears. You're our daughter too, she whispered. This is cruel. What he did to me on that roof was cruel, I said. What you've done for 2 years, rewriting the accident and calling me dramatic, that was cruel. And this? This is math. The ADA didn't look away. I want to be clear, she repeated. Trial is still on the table. If you can't or won't pay, we proceed. Public pressure is already high. The video is everywhere. A jury is not going to be sympathetic to your son. Dad rubbed his temples. If we agree to this ransom. Compensation, Maya corrected. Then what? He finished. He goes to prison anyway? Yes, Maya said. Just for less time. With a felony on his record either way. This money isn't buying his freedom. It's buying some measure of justice for Hannah. Mom stared at the number again, lips moving like she was doing calculations in her head. We'd have to cash out our retirement, she said hoarsely. Sell the lake house. Both cars. Refinance the main house. Mark appeared on the screen then, in an orange jumpsuit that looked shockingly bright against the dull wall behind him. For the first time, he actually looked like someone who'd done something unforgivable. The ADA repeated the offer. 3 years. Full admission of guilt. Public apology. $500,000. He swallowed hard. I don't have that kind of money, he said. We know, Maya replied. Your parents do. He glanced at them through the camera, something like panic in his eyes. You can't let them do this, he said to me. It'll ruin them. It already ruined me, I stated. This doesn't even make us even. It just makes sure I don't spend the rest of my life chained to debt because of something you did. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he looked down. When he spoke again, his voice was hoarse. If I take the deal, he said slowly, what do you do with the money? I took a breath. I pay off my medical bills, I said. I get a place where I don't have to beg anyone to carry my chair up the stairs. I pay for treatment that insurance refused to cover because it was experimental, even though it could improve my quality of life. I buy back some of the future you took from me. No one spoke for a while. It wasn't some big, dramatic decision, it was paperwork. Signatures. A plea entered into the record. The judge setting a deadline. The full amount was to be transferred into my lawyer's trust account by a specific date, or the deal was off and we'd go to trial. The weeks that followed were a blur of bank meetings and tense phone calls I wasn't part of. I heard pieces through Maya, through Lauren, through Dr. Reyes. My parents withdrew their retirement savings. They listed the lake house and sold it to a cash buyer in under a week, below market value because they were desperate. The 2 SUVs they loved so much were suddenly on a used car lot. The main house went back under a new, punishing mortgage. Mark, jobless and radioactive, could contribute almost nothing. His company cut him loose completely, citing gross misconduct. The accessibility app launched a statement distancing themselves, featuring a lineup of actual disabled consultants who looked nothing like me. On the very last day before the deadline, Maya called me. They really did it, she said. The full amount hit the account this morning. I was quiet for a long time. So that's it? I asked. He gets 3 years. 3 years, with the possibility of early release, she said. He'll have a felony on his record. He'll be on probation. He'll never work in certain fields again. It's not everything, but it's not nothing. The day of sentencing, I didn't look at my parents in the courtroom. I gave my victim impact statement, voice trembling but clear, then rolled out as soon as they dismissed me. I heard later that Mark cried when the judge read the final terms. I didn't see it. But what I did see, a few weeks later, was the zero balance on my hospital accounts. The payment confirmation from the wheelchair company. The lease agreement for a small but bright ground floor apartment on the other side of the city, with a ramp up to the front door and a roll-in shower. I signed it with shaking hands. Then I changed my number. Blocked my parents on everything. Sent one last email, not angry, just final. I wished them health, hoped they'd find a way to live with their choices, and told them I would not be part of their lives anymore. For the first time since the accident, I wasn't waiting for their approval, their help, or their permission. The money in my account couldn't fix my spine or erase what happened on that rooftop. But it could build a life that didn't orbit around their denial. 2 years later, I wake up to the sound of waves instead of sirens. My apartment in San Diego isn't huge, but it's bright, and that still feels like luxury. The living room window looks out over a slice of ocean between two buildings. In the evenings, the sky turns every shade of pink and orange, and sometimes I just sit there in my black carbon chair with a cup of tea and think, God, I really did this. Some of the settlement money went somewhere my parents would call crazy, a clinic in Spain that does experimental spinal cord stimulation. But it wasn't some movie miracle. I didn't stand up out of my chair to applause. It was months of travel logistics, hospital beds in another language, electrodes under my skin, exhausting rehab sessions that left me shaking. For a long time, nothing seemed different. Then one afternoon, lying on a therapy mat, my physio said, Hannah, look at your foot. I focused like my life depended on it. And my right big toe twitched. Just a tiny, stubborn movement, like it was saying, hey, I'm still here. I didn't leap into anyone's arms. I just cried quietly from relief. That tiny movement was my proof that forward doesn't always mean dramatic. Sometimes it's just a toe. Back in California, I found my people in a circle of plastic chairs in a community center basement. A support group for people with spinal injuries. No one there flinched at catheter jokes or pain scales or the word paralyzed. We traded tips on cushions and doctors, and how to keep your dignity when strangers talk to the person pushing your chair instead of to you. That's where I met Zoe. She was there for the first time, sitting with her hands wrapped around a paper cup of coffee, listening more than talking. She'd spent years caring for her paralyzed dad until he passed away. When she finally spoke, it wasn't in that pitying tone I'd learned to hate. It was practical, darkly funny, and oddly gentle. We started getting coffee after meetings. Then she started coming with me to medical appointments, automatically grabbing the back of my chair when the clinic ramps were too steep. Somewhere along the way, the girl from group turned into the person who knew what snacks I could eat after nausea days, who texted me memes at 2 a.m. when pain wouldn't let me sleep. One night at my kitchen table, surrounded by takeout boxes and her laptop, we decided to start an online project about disability rights and everyday accessibility. Just simple videos at first. How to talk to someone in a wheelchair without being weird. Why ramps still don't work if the bathrooms are in the basement. What invisible labor looks like for caregivers. We thought a few dozen people might watch. But instead, the account blew up. Comments poured in from all over the world. People in chairs, parents, partners, even business owners who genuinely didn't know how bad their accessible spaces were. For the first time, my story wasn't just something that happened to me, it was something that could help someone else demand better. One afternoon, an email notification popped up while I was editing a video. The sender's name made my stomach drop. Mark. It wasn't long. He didn't make excuses. He wrote that he knew he'd ruined my life twice, once on that wet road, once on that rooftop. He said he didn't expect forgiveness, didn't want anything from me, and hoped I was building a happy life far away from him. I read it twice, waiting for the old wave of rage, the desperate urge to argue, to prove, to replay every detail. But there was just quiet. No boiling anger, no warmth either. Just a flat, solid fact. It happened, it hurt, but it's over. He was a chapter, not my whole life. I closed the laptop. Zoe. I called. Ice cream run. She appeared in my doorway with her keys already in hand. Always, she said. Let's go, sis. On the boardwalk, she pushed my chair a little too fast on purpose, and I pretended to complain while the ocean wind slapped our faces and made us laugh. The same black carbon chair that once ruined a perfect photo was just part of me. Right there, with Zoe's hand steady on my handle and the ocean in front of us, it hit me. My real family isn't the one that protected a golden boy at any cost. It's the people who choose me on purpose. Who believe me. Who stay. If you've ever had to walk away from your own family to protect your sanity or build a chosen family from scratch, I'd really like to hear it. Tell your own story in the comments below. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe. There are so many hidden family secrets out there, and sometimes hearing someone else's truth makes your own feel a little less heavy.